Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our August 5th, 2026, 7 p.m. Budget meeting. We have our Finance Committee joining us tonight as well. Call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Tonight's roll call, we have Rob and Timey as excused. We are currently missing Daniel and Sean. They may show up here, but right now they will be unexcused. Tonight, obviously, we're discussing the agenda. I'd like to have everyone hold on to their questions till the end of everything, and then bring the questions at the end so we can discuss them at that time. So I need a motion to adopt the agenda for tonight.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Tom.
Second.
Thank you, Linda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Do we have any announcements tonight? Joanne?
I'd like to remind the community that a town hall meeting is planned for August 15th. That's a Saturday at 1 p.m. We will be meeting in the dance barn to present the proposed budget and to field questions about the budget or other topics that come up. This is our annual big town hall. Typically, many folks show up and get that opportunity to share their thoughts about how the association is doing and get their questions answered. So I would encourage everyone to come out on Saturday, August the 15th for that important town hall meeting. If you enjoy that meeting, you might also want to come the following Saturday, where again at 1 p.m. in the dance bar, we will be presenting the proposed revisions to the Sudden Valley bylaws. The revised bylaws have been posted to the suddenvalley.com website, and it's possible for members to review the entire document. It's in a red line format, which shows you, crosses out the stuff that is being deleted, and in a different color, it shows you the additions that are proposed. And there is the opportunity to post comments as well. We've already had several comments posted, some of them quite substantive with good thoughts. So you'll be able to post comments through the 19th, I believe, of August, and then on the 22nd, which is a Saturday, we'll be meeting in the dance barn to again present the revisions and take comments and questions, have a dialogue about why we're changing the bylaws and what the revisions would mean for Sudden Valley. So I encourage people to attend both of those important meetings.
Thank you, Joanne. Any other announcements? All right, hearing none, we'll move over to property owner comments. Is there any property owner comments tonight? Spencer, anyone online?
No, there's a hand up so far.
Thank you, sir. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to our new business with a presentation of the proposed 2027 budget. Joanne?
I'm just going to take a minute to share my screen, and then we'll be off to the races.
Is everything on the screen going to be on print form also?
Yes, we relocated the screen because all of the directors have a physical copy of the presentation. We relocated the screen so that other attendees could have a better view.
Yeah, it's over there, right? Yeah.
Can we bring Bob over here so he's not by himself over there?
Yes, if you have room, please.
Bob, come over and have a seat over here. So, I don't think Ken's coming, and I know Marty's not coming.
Well, you know, if you want, you can take Daniel's chair. Well, you're rock.
Or you take Daniel's, but either one, yeah.
That's better.
I get to sit at the adult table.
Yeah.
I would feel
No, I
guilty
just-
too close to that.
Thanks.
So thank you everyone for attending the annual presentation of the budget to the Board of Directors. At this point, it is still a proposed budget, and your input will be considered, obviously, as we revise it, ultimately for presentation to the membership on the November ballot. We're on a tight schedule, and I would want to remind everyone of the budget calendar, which was distributed way back in June. Does everybody remember this calendar?
Yep.
The month coming up, September, has many important dates for the board. that are critical for achieving what we need to achieve to prepare all of the materials for the ballot and for the annual general meeting. So I would encourage you guys to review those dates and try and clear your calendars to attend those meetings. We like to start our budget presentation with a little bit of discussion about how we actually do it. The process begins when Sudden Valley department managers conduct an annual asset inventory and inspection. They then submit input on the scope and schedule of repairs or replacements to both facilities and equipment. This is a critical element of the budget. We, in administration, deal with spreadsheets and obviously we present numbers and graphs and charts and all that good stuff. But they're just representations of the living and breathing assets that we have. And we don't just blindly follow the recommended repair schedules for our assets. We take the time every year to examine what we have, we keep it in good repair, and we make decisions about whether it's time to repair or replace something or whether we have additional, can get additional use out of that object. So this is a very critical step in our process every year. The next thing that we do is we sit down and we calculate what we think we'll be able to take in revenue. We have to consider the prevailing economic conditions, regional market trends, as well as the current year's performance for each one of our varied revenue sources. Then leadership, treasurer, the finance director, and myself, we take all of that management input, we consolidate it with the market information, and we prepare this draft budget. Easy to say, difficult to do. It takes many weeks, many long hours to put together all of the little pieces of information that give us a good idea of what our outlay is likely to be and what our income, what income we'll receive in order to offset it. The budget that we draw up is then presented at a joint meeting of the Finance Committee and Board of Directors. That's the step we're doing this evening. Next, the revised budget is presented to the community at a town hall meeting. The board then reviews and approves the final revised budget, which is finally presented for a vote of the membership during the annual election. So all of these steps ensure that the process results in a consolidated picture of our association's finances. The 2027 operating budget for balance is $5,485,357 in revenue, with $5,485,357 in expenditures. As an association, we are required to zero it out. We can't spend more than we take in. The proposed 2027 monthly dues for a developed lot will be $177.24. For an undeveloped lot, the dues will be $168.31, and that represents a 6% increase from last year. People always ask, what are my dues paying for? And so we take that $177.24, which is the monthly dues for a developed lot, and we divide it up and show where each one of those dollars goes. Starting on the upper right, $42.44 goes to SURF, which stands for the Capital Repair and Replacement Reserve Fund. This fund pays for major repairs, replacements, and restoration of common area components and equipment, so Sudden Valley's assets. The Roads Reserve Fund is next, receiving $39.73 out of every monthly payment. And of course, our Roads Reserve Fund pays for major road repairs, bridges, and culvert work. That $177.24 contributes 71 cents towards the Mailbox Reserve Fund. And eventually we will have to replace those mailboxes, and that's what we're saving up for. So we don't have to face another special assessment for that. Last but not least, $94.36 of each monthly payment goes into the Operations Fund, which holds the annual revenue and expenses for all the amenities and homeowners association services that are delivered on a daily basis. The 2027 dues proposal is on the screen now in front of you, and it shows that there is a 6% increase overall for both the dues for developed lots and undeveloped lots. We compare the middle column, which is shown there in goldenrod for 2027 to 2026, our current year. Now in total, the dues are going up by 6%. However, the individual categories of contribution for each of the monthly dues payments are not going up equally. In order to meet the projected expenses of operations, the operational portion of your monthly dues payment is actually going up by 8.8%. Roads and mailboxes, those funds, however, are not increasing from your dues contribution, and that results overall into a 6% increase. The annual revenue worksheet starts to look at dues at an annual level. And I think that this slide helps us to understand why there's a 6% increase this year, and what we've experienced in the past in terms of increases, as well as what we think might happen in the future. So this slide attempts to put into perspective the dues amounts that have been proposed over the years. Between 2020, which is the first column in this chart that's being presented here, and 2027, proposed annual dues for a developed lot will increase by a total of 22.8%, from $144.31 in 2020 to $177.24 in 27. If dues had increased at a constant 3% every year beginning in the budget year of 2021, dues would have equaled $177.48 in 2027, which is just slightly above the proposed amount for next year. Between 2020 and 2026, which is the most current year for which we have numbers published by the federal government, the effects of general inflation produced a cumulative price increase of about 29%, which is roughly 4.34% per year. This full revenue table with totals in each of the categories is presented on the following slide, but I'd like to point out that we've caught up with what is generally considered to be a nominal increase to account for inflation. But I want to point out that mathematically, we have not caught up. And the reason for that is because we were taking in a lower dues amount, we had lower assessments, some repairs or equipment replacements were deferred. And every time we defer a purchase of services or of equipment, the cost of it rises. And so to have deferred for 3 years or 4 years repairs that were needed, we significantly increased the cost of those repairs. So small incremental increases are healthier for the association than periods of no dues increases followed by large increases. Mathematically, it's very challenging to catch up. So onward we go. Here is your first eye chart. This is a pro forma that we prepare every year and have available for reference to show the increases of dues over the years and the various ways in which they aggregate towards relevant numbers. One of the most important lines on this chart is highlighted in yellow, and it's just below the middle. And that's the collection rate. Here at Sun Valley, we enjoy a very, very healthy collection rate. Back in 2020, we budgeted a 92% collection rate, which meant that we thought that about 8% of the households here in the valley would not be able to pay their dues assessments. That increased in 2021 to 95% and then backtracked in 2022 to 93%. But since 2020, 2022, sorry. Since 2023, we've been at a 95% rate, and we have exceeded that collection rate, that budgeted collection rate in each one of those years. If you follow the board meetings and you've heard our financial presentations, you will have heard me say that our collection rate is lower than expected this year by about 1 percentage point, or a little bit under that. I think that may be a reflection of increasing rates of inflation, toughening economic outlook for a lot of households, especially as they try to adjust to the rising price of fuel. However, our collection rate still is above our budgeted number and is extremely healthy for an organization like ours, like an HOA. All right, so we have to be careful and aware of the slight dip in our collection rate, but it does not threaten the feasibility of this budget in any way. We're still budgeting at a conservative 95%, and it's likely that we will end up this year at about 97%. When we get to the capital budget, it's important to note that it has been prepared with no increases in dues after the current year 2027, the current year for which we're budgeting. Obviously, we're not in 2027 yet. I think that this is a very conservative and a very stable way to plan for the future. We don't want to assume that dues will go up every year, and we want to be prudent regarding our planning, our capital planning, to make sure that we do have enough in our reserves to take care of the required repairs and replacements each year. And when we get to the capital budget, Joel will share with you the year-ending residuals for each of the 10 years in the period, and you will see that we do in fact have adequate reserves to accomplish all of our planned repairs and replacements. So it's a very healthy position to be in. This is a great chart because it helps people to understand how we fund our operations. And in general, not just the operational budget, but all of our bigger operations, including our capital funds. So this chart shows you the total income, the total net income by source. Starting at the very tippy top, that tiny sliver is what goes into the mailbox fund. Moving clockwise around the chart, the pale blue shows you the portion of dues that goes into operations. The brighter blue sliver moving around clockwise is the net marina income, which, and you can see the observation there, that it supplements monthly dues by $6.45. Similarly, we project an $18,000 net income for golf operations next year, and that would offset about 51 cents of dues, or contributes 51 cents to our income. The surf fund, you can see there, for the larger, the darker yellow section, and then finally capital. And that represents our net income in total. This is a handy chart that summarizes the operational budget by department. Now, many of our departments, we don't expect to make any money because they're just administrative or supportive functions. And you can see there the increase or the decrease over last year and the percent change. And overall, of course, we see a 7.8% increase. One notable change that we should address is that the rec center is showing a reduced expense level for 2027. It's not because we're investing less in recreation, it's because we've made an administrative adjustment. There was a position that had been charged for the last couple of years to recreation, which ended up working primarily at the front office, at the Welcome Center. So in 2027, we moved that position into administration, which is shown here as operations. So you can see that the rec budget, the percent change is down by 16.7%, and the operational budget and administration is up by 14.7. That nets out roughly. This is the flip side of the first pie chart. That first pie chart is about income. This tells us what we pay, what our dues pays for. Operational dues. So the top right, pumpkin colored slice of the pie, property taxes, the views, our insurance and legal. $11.95 of our dues goes towards that every month. Operations, $19.11 goes towards payment for that. $12.99 goes to pay for Joel's department, accounting. $5.43 goes towards facilities. $15.92 goes to maintenance. $17.74 goes to security and the Architectural Control Committee, including hazardous tree mitigation, a big expense for the association. We're up to the green slice, which is the recreational department, which gets $8.14, and pools, $3.08. So that's where your money is going for operations.
That's a nice chart.
Fine chart.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it was a comment, but I didn't wait till the end. It was,
It's not a question, so it's
but it's a good chart.
especially if it's a compliment.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about the context for the operating budget. As we mentioned, current economic conditions are reflected in the budget. Specifically, expected increases in property taxes, property and casualty insurance, so like our liability or D&O, those policies. Medical insurance, fuel, and utilities were accommodated. And we'll highlight, when Joel goes through the budget, he'll highlight the significant increases in each of those categories. An additional area of increase in our budget is for the cost of providing 24/7 security. That has increased about 11% for 2027. And this last bullet point is important. We talked about it earlier, I'll mention it again. 3/4 of the funds that we will collect because of the proposed dues increase will be used to fund increases in the operational budget. So unfortunately, we're still racing to keep up with inflation, specifically in the areas that we noted here. And the increases in those categories should be no secret or no surprise to anyone here, because we're all suffering as individuals, as well as our organization is suffering from inflation in those categories. This chart is showing you the FTE count and history over the years. FTE stands for a full-time equivalent. A human being, typically, working full-time, works about 2,080 hours each year. So if you show up to work 52 weeks out of the year and you work 40 hours a week, you get to 2,080 hours. This calculation takes the total number of hours that we anticipate paying for and just divides the hours by that number to get one full-time equivalent, okay? So in some instances, particularly in recreation where we have many part-time seasonal workers, one full-time FTE may actually be represented by 3 people, right? Each working a portion of that 40 hours each week. I think it's important to note here for the community in general that we have not added staff. In fact, we have lost staff over the years. Part of that is due to efficiencies, particularly in maintenance, where we use external contractors to perform specialty services. This helps us in a number of ways. It helps us because someone who cleans gutters from 7 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 days a week, is going to be a lot better and faster at cleaning gutters than somebody who has to remind themselves how to do it annually. Like me cleaning my gutters at home, right? It takes me like half a day to figure out how I did it last time. It also allows us to limit the amount of specialized tools and equipment that we have here. two important ways that we're increasing the efficiency of maintenance in particular. All of the departments have done that sort of efficiency improvement to the extent that they're able. It's more applicable in some departments than in others. For example, our turf care department is so specialized, they can't bring in outside contractors. They're here every day, they know the land, they know the course, they know what they have to do, and they just go out there and do it. So different departments have been able to make economies in this way than others. But I wanted to include this chart in the presentation because I know that it's difficult to continue to pay an increasing amount of dues every year and not feel like maybe somebody's wasting your money. But this is a good example that we are working very, very hard. And the 2027 budget actually reflects a reduction of almost half of a full-time employee. So we have reduced it by about 1,000 hours year over year, and that improves our bottom line.
Nice.
All right, so we're now going to transition to Joel so that he can walk us through the specifics of the operating budget. You can't, there's no highlight, it isn't that. Okay, closer.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go ahead and go through the entire operating budget. I'm gonna go through this a lot faster than what you might think, so I'm not going to dwell on every single line item. I'm just going to hit the high points of each department. And the good thing is, a lot of the changes apply to every single department. As you see, like, as Joanne pointed out, basically almost all the changes are all external type changes, like outside contractors, payroll, fuel, utilities, insurance, so on and so forth. So with that, I'm just gonna go through this operating budget. We'll start off with common costs. I'll just try to explain where I am on the page as well as possible, since you guys have it all in front of you. But you can see on common costs, we start off with this. So if you look at the bold kind of left headings of dues and assessments, income ops category, you can see that. I'm looking at the total dues and assessments income. You can see this is the biggest revenue source for the association. That increases 8.91% from 2026 to the 2027 budget. And that just builds in exactly as Joanne described, the increase in dues to both developed lots and undeveloped lots, vacant lots. So that's obviously the both combined comes up to our bottom line, $3,319,883 for the 2027 budget. That is after the bad debt expense of $174,731, which equates to a 95% collection rate. And in 2026, that was a 95% collection rate again. So we're remaining with the 95% collection rate. And then just going down the page, we'll skip over other AR income. Once again, if you focus on to the left, that the bold categories, other AR income, I'll skip over that. Now we're just going to other income. Really, the only real line item that has increased in this category is we did plug in $15,000 for timber income. And this is for all the hazardous trees that come down and that we sell out for timber income. And that, obviously, that's the trio where that is captured, if you went back and looked at past financial statements. Going down to the last category of this page, it says regulatory compliance. Actually, the last line item, GL 9015 property real estate tax, you'll see that goes up from $65,000 to $71,000. That's just building in an expected increase in property taxes for all of our common area property. Skipping the page, or returning the page to the next page, common costs. So the first line item on here, postage dues, is really not a big increase, but I guess I'll point out anyways. That's going up $2,000. which will accommodate obviously like mailings for the ballots and so on and so forth. Oh, excuse me, this is just the views, so this is just postage only for the views. That's captured in a different line item under the AGM. Legal services you'll see in CCR and mandates, I'll just point out that it's not changing. So it's 100,000 in 2026, 100,000 in 2027. You can see, and I'll also point out how these columns go. So the very far left column is the 2022 actual numbers, then obviously as moving to the right, 2023 actual, 2024 actual, 2025 actual, and then the May 2026 year-to-date actual numbers. So you can, then obviously then skipping that gap, there's the 2026 budget, 2027 budget, the last column is the budget percentage change, which is just giving you the percentage change from the 2027 budget, from the 2026 to the 2027 budget number. But you can see as of May on this line item for legal services, the good thing is we're only sitting at 17,000, which is great. So they're not as high as how they have been in the past. So we feel comfortable leaving this in 100. Insurance premiums, if we go into the insurance category, you can see it's going from roughly 251,000 to 264,000, rounded, obviously increased 5%. This is a calculated number, so what I do is I take a look at, our insurance premiums renew basically June of the year. So what I do is I look back at our last June renewals, which just happened literally just the other month. I take those amounts and I calculated in a 15% increase from June. So the insurance expense numbers for the first half of the year basically are the expense that hits it will be for the renewal from the prior year. And then in 2027, we're basically, so for the first half of 2027, it's going to be what it was renewed in as of June of 2026. And then from July 1 of 2027 on, then it takes that 15% additional increase. So that's why the total overall increase is 5%. So I'm comparing this to actual billings. So obviously for the first half of the year, the expenses hitting it is the insurance renewals from the prior year. And for the next half, it'll be for that current year at 15% on. So if we skip the page, the good thing now we're through common costs, going to accounting. So I'm looking at once again, did you advance it? So that bold heading to the left, I'm skipping over other AR income and I'm just going right into the administrative column. And you'll see the last line of this, GL 5399 payroll service fees, that one, increasing that one 32% over the 2026 budget. So it's going from 19,000 to approximately 25,000. This is just, so you can see the 2025 actual is about 23,000. It's just accommodating increase in payroll service fees that they notify us that, like for example, they notified us earlier this year that are going on. Then we get into the next section, regulatory compliance, GL 7,000 audit tax services, built in 10% increase for that. And what hits this line item will be our audit and our reserve study. Good thing, and just like this year, it's a level 3. Last year, you remember, we did a level 2 reserve study on site. This year is a level 3 for the 2027 budget year. Next year will also be another level 3. So whenever you have a level 2 reserve study, then the following 2 years after that, you can have a level 3, and then you have to, it's every 3 years you need a level 2. So this year's, we get to do a level 3, next year is the second year we get to do a level 3, and then the year after that, we'll have to go back to level 2. Now when we get down into the last category of this page, payroll and benefits, this, what you see right here applies to every single department. Accounting is an easy one to see because it's static, we don't have, basically our FTEs stay the same, they've stayed the same for years. But you can see salaries, we built in a 3% increase, and this is a 3% increase on the current pay rates that are being paid out right now, bumped up 3%. That's why when you get into other departments, it could be less than 3%. That's just because as people come and go, then they take on the prevailing CBA rate that's in the collective bargaining agreement. which could be less, than what someone who has been more senior who stayed here longer. But, so we built in a 3% payroll increase from current pay rates right now. Obviously, payroll taxes go up in tandem with that, with the payroll taxes. The medical benefits, the third line of this category, so how I did that is I took the current medical cost right now and I bumped that up 10.6%. And this is all in anticipation of when we go through a new union collective bargaining agreement, which we will have to go through here. So we're building in, possible scenarios of what might happen, like after the collective bargaining agreement is finalized. The payroll benefits, this 401k, the last line of this section, the current CBA says right now we have to match, provide a payroll match, 401k match up to 1.5% of compensation that they were paid. So what I build in is half of that, 0.75% of total compensation. And actually looking at the end of the 2025 actual amount that we paid out in 401k expenses, it was 0.495% of actual. So it's actually pretty close, what I built in. It's hard to know exactly, what people are gonna do for when
It's not compelling, but by choice.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
While I let Joel take a breath here, I'd like to just point out that all of the categories that are increasing above 6%, and they are all external costs. Property taxes, we have no control over that, we can't move to a lower cost provider. Insurance, similarly, there are a few companies. Yeah, insurance is huge, it is massive, and although we shop our policy every year, there are very few insurers who want to take on an organization of our range and our size. And so while we can always try to reduce costs by being more efficient, there is no way you can reduce property taxes. And similarly, if you track through this budget, and one hint that might help people as they review this is that right-hand column, when you see a percent increase that's above 3%, that should catch your attention, and then you move to the next column and you see, is it a large category or a small category? Because like postage, we don't spend that much on postage every year, so you might see a large proportion increase, but in terms of dollars, it's not as significant. And then, of course, if you're interested in why that number went up, you can look above it for the lines that contribute towards it, and you can get a better understanding of what is driving that increase. So just as a general recommendation for how to read these pages and review them, that would be my advice. So moving on to facilities.
So moving on to facilities, because we basically covered the highlights of the calendar. So now we're into facilities. That very first line item, Area Z storage rental income, you'll see it's gone from 24,000, we budgeted 38,500 for this. I don't know if you want to say.
Well, after the implementation of the waiting lists, which the board approved 2 years ago, we've seen an uptick in, or an increase in the rapidity with which we can fill openings. So we have less downtime for open RV storage slots. You'll see the same thing for dry slip storage in the marina. And staff has been focused on, this is open, I'm gonna go to the next person on the waiting list. And so we have less downtime, of course that's driving our revenues.
Yeah, the next section on here, the lease income, this is all according to the actual lease agreements. The one thing that I'll point out is the lease income from the library, you'll see in 2026, it was 7,800, in 2027, it says 7,800 again, then you might think, oh, their lease isn't going up. Well, it is going up, it's just in 2026, it got a higher number that got in there. It should have been a little lower than that, but that's why. Their lease is going up according to the lease, it's just the 2026 budget reflected a little bit higher number than what the lease is actually going up. Normally I wouldn't point that out, it's just because it's such a small amount. Meaning, what I mean by this, Linda, is then for the 2026 budget, the 7,800 should have been more like around 6,600. In the 2025 year to date out. Once again, it's, I mean, in terms of dollar wise, it's really not worth mentioning, but just in case someone thought the lease wasn't going up, it is going up, so, meaning what we're charging them, and this, the budget reflects it. Once again, we get down to facilities, payroll and benefits, it's the exact same drill as with accounting, salaries, increase 3% from the current rate. Payroll taxes go from lockstep, medical, exact same thing. Current medical costs right now increased by 10.6% to build in some anticipated increase in medical benefits that we'll have to pay. Same thing with 401k. If we flip the page here on facilities, you can see this is where we get into the utilities. This is another major category of increases going up for the association. And you can see all of these, natural gas, water and sewer, electricity, trash and recycling services especially, they're all going up by, anywhere from 10% to 30% here in trash and recycling services. So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to achieve an increase of at least 10% from a 2025 actual or a 2026 budgeted amount, which seems most reasonable to build an anticipated increase to cover future costs. In the next section, maintenance and landscaping, really the only category worth mentioning here is the building repair and maintenance contract vendor. It's down from 45,000 to 50,000, but once again, it's obviously that recurrent theme, a contract vendor, an outside source, anticipated increase in those costs. That basically covers it for facilities, so if we flip past the last page of facilities and get right into the golf department. So the good thing is, see how quickly we're going through this?
Good job.
We're like halfway through. It's like,
Yeah. We're not lost, it's
Yeah.
good, it's good.
And we're actually picking up speed. I can tell.
More coffee, Joe, no more coffee.
So we're into the golf management budget, especially these budgets here provided by Kevin, church department provided by Greg. So all of these revenue numbers going up a total increase of 2.68% from the 2026 budget amount. In terms of the rest of these pages, they're really, the increases on these are fairly small. There's nothing huge going on for the rest of the page. If we flip the page in golf, and then the payroll benefits, it's the exact same thing. Budget percent increase, now here's the situation where it's 3.14%. So like I said, we use current rates right now, we bump it up 3% with the exception of the golf pro, he's a salary exempt person. So we have to pay him the minimum salary exempt rate by the state. And I believe that next year is gonna be, if I remember right, like 2.5, 250% of minimum wage, I believe is what it's going to be next year. So that's what I'm building into stuff like that. And anyone who works for golf who, who is at the minimum wage, like the seasonal rates, I bump those up 3%, which should more than cover an increase in the minimum wage. Because last year's minimum wage going from 2025 to 2026 was a little less than 3%, so that should cover that as well. Payroll taxes, obviously, medical benefits, the exact same thing, 401k, same thing as what I mentioned with the other departments. Insurance premiums, you'll see going up. That's just that as part of that calculation that I already talked about that I did for common costs. It's calculated the same way when their policy renews. It's a 3-year policy that they have that I just factor in a 15% increase for that. Utilities, exact same thing. You'll see these are all going up by at least 10%. They're calculated the same way, looking back at 2025 year-to-date actuals, comparing it to 2026 budgets and increasing those by at least 10% per line item. Vehicle fuel, which is the third line from the bottom here, GL 6785. You'll see that vehicle fuel is another one that I bumped up 10%, so at least 10% for vehicle fuel as well. So that's basically with utilities and vehicle fuel, you're going to see an increase of about at least 10%. And that takes care of golf management. If you flip pages and then do a page after that, we'll get into the rec department. So let's go ahead and flip that, go to the next page after that, the other numbers, there are no real huge increases on those, but when we get into this page, this will reflect what Joanne already talked about in terms of payroll and benefits. So you'll see the payroll and benefits category, you'll see the salaries, how that took that dive, went down 22.95%, and exactly like Joanne said before, there's an administrative assistant that works out of the Welcome Center, so they weren't down at the rec center, they were always at the Welcome Center. But we charged them through the rec center. It's kind of like the Welcome Center was thought of a one-stop shop. So people come in, not just for administrative stuff, but also for rec center related type of business, and then that person handled that. So then instead of just kind of for ease of administrative purposes of tracking this FTE, we removed it from the rec center and just placed it in the administrative center, or in ops, which is administration.
Yeah.
But the position itself was always in the Welcome Center.
So I'm going back up a page on recreation because that's where the income is. And as I would admit to Joel, these numbers are not huge, but the incremental income that we create by charging non-resident guests who are using our facilities and getting instructor and trainer fees, renting out lockers, except of course we haven't made any on that in a couple of years, but the idea here is that we're being as good stewards as we can be. So if there's an opportunity to collect a little bit of revenue, we do it. And you can see that all of these numbers have incremented up.
Yeah, you can see the total, like the 2025 actual for this, 11,557. So we basically pulled the 2027 budget more in line with that to 11,400 from the 8,800 in 2026. Yeah. Going back, flipping back over to the other page, the only other real category to talk about in this is utilities. It's the same drill that we talked about before with facilities. They're all going to get at least 10%. With the one exception of communication services. This one is a little more static. You can see like going back looking over the years, but so that one just goes up 2.3 to 2%. Now we can flip a couple pages and get into the maintenance department. Mike and Matt both worked on this department together. And same with the facilities department as well, Mike and Matt as well. So it wasn't just us doing it, it was also the team for both Mike and Matt that went over the budgets. You can see with maintenance, I'm just skipping down to the second category, administrative. It's really not a big increase, but uniforms going from 3,000 to 4,500. That does say in the current CBA that we provide work boots, I believe. So it's building in additional costs to account for that. And that was one of the things that Mike also specifically asked for, is for this line item to go up a little, especially because of the work groups. He mentioned that as well. We skip down to the payroll and benefits. It's the same, like I said, it's the exact same thing as any other department. If we look at the last two lines of this, weather response payroll, we're leaving this at 15,000, the same in 2026 budget. You can see the 2025 actual, they had close to $10,000 in weather response payroll. So, you know, the real thinking on this one originally for 15,000 was to build in at least a good couple solid weather events that hit. And that 15,000 has been, it's been proven to be adequate enough, like if you look back over the years. So we'll go ahead and leave that at 15,000. Turning the page on maintenance. This GL 6675 equipment repair and maintenance, that's been increased from 15,000 to 20,000. I mean, not like a huge increase, but obviously, you know, you're taking into account aging equipment and so on and so on for repair. Vehicle fuel, you'll see a few lines down, same thing. That one is going up 17,412 to 21,107. With that one, I'm also specifically comparing it to the 2025 actual and bumping it up, you know, about 10% or so from that number. That's why you see that larger percentage increase there. This last line item on this page, under contract and professional services, GL 7095, so it's going from 25,000 to 30,000. And I remember Mike's, one of his comments specifically was that outside services have continued to increase in cost, so that's specific. So he specifically wanted that line item about 5,000. Now, if we turn the page to the Marina Department. So the Marina West Lip income, you'll see the 2026 budget, 242,857. 2027 budget is 246,232, so fairly similar. So that there are no increase to Marina slip fees or dry slip fees. Those fees are staying exactly the same. I don't know if you want to say anything.
Yeah, this year we saw many more people than usual fail to renew their contracts, and we struggled for almost 2.5 months to fill the open spaces. We no longer have a waiting list for dry slips. So I think we have found our fair market value pricing. And we want to continue to have high occupancy at the marina, and so we're not anticipating increasing the fees because we feel that that would be a big disincentive to people.
Yeah, this is the first year that I can recall. No, waiting list, no.
That's not true for the wet slips. They're still premium. You still have a waiting list there, but for the dry slips, there is no longer a waiting list.
Okay, so the last category of this page, utilities, same exact thing, at least 10% increase you're gonna see on all these utilities. And the good thing that covers all the material changes for Marina. So now we can skip ahead to the admin department, go a couple pages into it. Now you will see the very first line item, you will see anticipated annual rental registration fees for 2027 of $20,400. Obviously, we didn't have a budget for that in 2026 at all, so that's obviously 100% increase plus. I'm skipping down to the administrative column. You'll see bank charges and fees went from 10,000 to 14,000. This is literally just to accommodate, to pull it in line with what our actual bank fees are coming in for the admin department. Obviously, this covers things like like credit card processing fees and the like. That's what that covers. Skipping to the next page, the annual general meeting expense, the GO 5003, it's gone from 24,000 to 32,000. I don't know if you.
That reflects the hybrid, the cost of performing a hybrid election and using the online voting. As we progress and get more people to sign up for online voting, we will potentially be able to stop mailing out ballots to everyone, and that will significantly reduce this cost because the cost of printing and postage are rising fast. But for 2027, we anticipate that we'll continue to need additional funds, and so we've accommodated that in the budget.
Okay, the payroll and benefits section, obviously this is the exact opposite of the rec department. Since you saw the rec department go down payroll costs, now you see the payroll costs for admin go up. But it's not because they actually added anyone, it's just the position that was always budgeted. The person actually sat in the welcome center instead of that FTE being charged to the rec budget, it's now being charged to the admin budget. But the FTE is exactly the same. Like there's no change in pay rates and stuff like that, it's the same. Skipping down to the utilities section, communication services go, so this is going from 12,000 to 17,568. This is like Comcast communication fees. Some of this is also the way that, like in the accounts payable department, how Davey has been coding these communication costs coming in, and the way that she allocates and codes. For me, at Adjournment, I believe it's less work to align the budget with her coding than to tell her to change her coding. So, and to change her internal allocations that she's been doing. So that's a lot of what that increase in that fee is.
Yeah, and communication services covers both internet and telephone. Because we use a VoIP, voice over IP system, it's all through Comcast, and we have internet through them as well. So it's a block charge, and a lot of it shows up in administration, but then that service is used by all of the departments.
Last line of this page, IT support and services, 45,000 to 52,500.
Yeah, that reflects a significant decrease in licensing fees for Microsoft Office. Microsoft, like every other vendor on the planet, is increasing their fees. And increasingly, we are adding extra security features because of the rise of cyber threats. And it would be a significant business disruption to have problems with our IT infrastructure. And so this year particularly, we not only upgraded some of our licenses to include Microsoft Defender and other services, but we've also added cyber security awareness training. It's a requirement of our insurance, believe it or not. And all of this stuff costs money, so the IT costs have significantly increased.
Okay, on to the next page. So let's talk about the other professional services. Second line on this, GL 7095, you'll see it's going from 25,000 to 35,000. This is just outside HR support and anything else.
No, but if you take a look back at the 2025 actual, you'll see that we've pulled back our spending from what was spent last year, but that was never reflected in the budget. So the 35,000 is an increase over budget, but actually a decrease from what was experienced last year.
Yeah, the next two pages we can skip over these entirely. This is Parks Department. It has historical actuals in here, so these pages pop up, but going back to 2024, Mike accounted for parks into maintenance. So that's why you'll see zero amounts budgeted for parks. All of that is rolled into the maintenance department. So then if we go right on to the pools budget, you can see the first line of this page, the pools income was increased from 25,000 to 29,000. That's just pulled in line with more of the actuals of what we've been taking in, especially in 2025. If we skip down to payroll and benefits, same exact thing. This is just literally just taking the pay rates and what we're paying out right now. I even built in a little bit more. I used a little bit higher pay rates as well into this to account for a little more possible resources for lifeguards next year as well.
One of the challenges in keeping the pool running in the intense 3 months that it's open is to ensure that we have enough lifeguard staff. There are specific requirements for how many guards we need for X number of people in the pool, and there's high competition for lifeguards throughout the Bellingham area, so we need to pay competitive rates in order to ensure that we can keep the pool open for the months where we have warm weather.
Second to the last line of this page, pool management, GL 6438. I mean, the good thing here is you can see that this line item has increased 12,000. This just reflects our current, the contract that was made with
Cisco,
Cisco.
the current year. And that's due to maintenance taking on more and more of the pool management responsibilities. So it's another economy that has been achieved by maintenance.
Okay, so if you go ahead and flip the page again, and then we'll get into the ACC Security Department. You can see now, and two things definitely worth talking about, like the new home construction and the line below that, GL 4805 compliance fees and fines, and the new home construction, 2026 budget 185,000, 2027 budget, these are revenue accounts for revenue line items, 92,500, so a drop by 50%. Compliance fees and fines 60,000, 2027 budget 30,000, that as well was reduced by 50%.
This is reflective of fewer homes being built. We have about 9 new construction projects this year. In previous years, we averaged between 20 to 25. So the last year and a half, we saw higher than average new construction, which was motivated by builders wanting to get their projects approved by Whatcom County before a code change was implemented. So that code change came around, everybody scrambled to get stuff approved before it, and now that has tapered off significantly. So we're looking at about half the projects. And while it's challenging from a budgetary perspective, if we're doing less projects, we're also spending a little bit less staff time on them, so we've appropriately reduced other charges. But it is just a factor of the association being more and more built out. Less and less new construction will occur.
Now, skipping down to the regulatory compliance, that GL 6165 hazardous tree removal pruning. In 2026, that's where we really increased that to 250,000. 2027, we'll go ahead and leave that at 250,000. When you're doing a look back over, let's look at the May, or 2025 actuals, it says 68,767, but looking at everything, that's just operations, and 88,237 put to the common area storm from that November 2024 bomb cyclone. 100,000 was spent out of UDR, so total expenditures in 2025 was, they were $257,004. Total expenditures, out of ops, those storm GLs and UDR was real close to 460,000, and obviously that was the reason why we really bumped up that line item. The good thing is trees have actually been doing better this year. So at the end of July, so far, of all the invoices that we have right now that have hit the GL through July, we have $88,679 in tree expenses. So we're at about a little under 70% of what we could have spent per budget through July at this point. So that's the bright spot right now with trees. Of course, trees are a little tricky because all it would take is, as we know from that November 2024 bomb cyclone, it could just take one good storm to come through here in the fall, and we'll be happy we have that 250,000 spent.
It's also true that the removal of hazardous trees, while we do it all year round, does ramp up in the fall and winter months because of the weather events. So it's good that we have the 250. I hope we don't have to spend it, but we do have it if we need to.
Last line on this page, GL 7097 professional security services. You can see that went from 309,000 to 342,866, and this just absolutely reflects what the contract says for 2027, the new contract that we have with RSU. So the next page, ACC, this is salaries. Really don't know if I'm talking about this. It's the exact same thing as all the other departments. Current rates bumped up by 3%. Current medical costs bumped up by 10.6%. Then you can see into the maintenance and landscaping, GL 6785 vehicle fuel went from 11,568 to 12,746, increase of 10.18%, same as other departments. So now if you flip the page, then we're into turf care, so this will be the last department in the operations budget for that, so we're making great time. And you can see the payroll and benefits, you can see like a decrease here, and this is a combination of, it's just actual rates right now, and this is the department where it was decided that some temporary seasonal labor wasn't needed quite as much, and this is quite frankly where the 0.48 FTEs came from, was the turf seasonal, not union salaries, but just seasonal salaries. Utilities, same thing, this next section down, just increase that I've talked about in other departments. And grade, all, just like Kevin did for golf, grade also supplied vast majority of these numbers. Maintenance and landscaping, GL 6110 went from 44,000 to 48,000, not a huge increase, but 4,000. Equipment, repair and maintenance, kind of the same thing for facilities, went from 60,000 to 70,000, just to account for repair and maintenance of aging equipment. The last page for turf care, you can see, is the vehicle fuel, and same thing, vehicle fuel went up here, is according to 2026 budget by 7.84%, meaning we're basically pushing up a good 10% for 2025 actuals. But the good thing is that covers, the last few pages of this these are handy of this budget that you're looking at, because it says all department summary. So if you're ever wondering like, gee, in total for the whole association, how much is electricity? You know, you could look up the GL. See, that would be like, so the section for utilities, electricity, you can see that, you can see they're all the GLs 6033s rolled together. So electricity is going from 70,345 budget in 2026 to 89,375 in 2027. And you can do the same thing for salaries, total salaries going up. The last page of this, you can see total all department summary expenses is the number that Joanne pointed out. $5,485,357. Total all department net income is 0 because the revenues are exactly the same number, so it's a balanced budget. If you were to just take the dues numbers out of the total revenue numbers, and so then you're left with non-dues revenues, you would see that the non-dues revenues actually is budgeted to go down by about 31,000 from 2027 to 2026.
And that reduction is due to the smaller number of new construction projects. That reduction alone took about $90,000 out of our other income, not dues income. So non-dues income went down for ACC security by 92,000 or something. But we've made up for that by increasing revenue in all those little categories like pools and administration and all those little sources of revenue. So we did the best job we could to replace it. It just was not possible to replace all of it.
Big numbers.
Question, before you go into capital budget, can we ask some questions about operations?
Yes. Yes.
If you're ready.
Are you done, Joe?
I'm done with operations.
Okay. Well, first off, I'd like to say congratulations to General Manager and Joel and department heads for doing a great job this year, keeping control of everything. I really appreciate your efforts. And now we'll open up for questions. We'll go around the team.
I just want to have a comment, and that's about the construction. It's, we have fewer lots, and we're not gonna be able to, I think Joanne and Joel are right, that, you know, construction is just decreasing, and so it's gonna be an area where we can't depend on in the future. It's not like it's gonna come back. We don't have that many lots left to do construction on, so that's not a piece of revenue that even in the near short term that we can really, well, in the near short term, we can hopefully depend on it somewhat, but at some point, it's just not gonna be there.
I think we still have 264.
Yeah, but again, they're getting harder to build on some of those lots.
I agree.
And more expensive, and some of the regulations to build now are getting more difficult.
And a lot of those lots are tied to existing residents, and the whole idea is not to ever build on it. Well, we can, there's a bunch of them. Neighbors have 3 lots.
I think most of those are in a separate
Yeah,
line
they're
item.
joined.
I think they're in a separate line item.
If they've been consolidated, they're not.
Yeah, they're separate line items, they're not a big lot.
It's true though that not all of the lots that are held have been consolidated. Some people have chosen to keep them separate so they could sell them together.
Well, yeah, it makes it a buildable lot.
Any other questions?
So I have a question regarding the payroll increases. So the 3% overall, I think is fair. We want to be good stewards to our employees, and I think that's expected for the rate of inflation. But I noted there was a 33% increase from 19,000 to 25,000 for payroll services. So overall, we're paying an additional $10,000 to our employees for that inflation increase, but $6,000 is going to payroll services. What are we getting for that?
So basically, all of our payroll is done through a third-party service, meaning we provide all the information, like all the employees log in online to iSalt and report all their time. And then they're the ones who actually process it and basically like ACH money in people's accounts, direct deposit in people's accounts, send out paychecks, things like that, W4s at the end of the year. and so on and so forth.
Like an ADP or
Yeah,
something.
exactly, like an EDP.
Major savings in cost of energy for us doing it in-house.
We used to have somebody else though, and I thought we switched to this
Yeah, we
company
had
a long
ADP.
time ago, because it was gonna
Yeah,
save us
I-
lots of money.
Yeah, this place did use ADP, and I believe it was in 2019, before I came here, when they switched to ISO. Why, I don't know.
There was a considerable savings then, but since then, as this shows, that isn't.
Now, this doesn't mean it's gonna cost that much, it's just literally just being on the safe side, building.
Do they help with HR conflicts also? Sorry,
No, that's okay.
they help with like HR conflicts or issues or, you know, like that, do they help?
We have a
with that?
consultant, an HR consultant that does that, it's separate from ISOL, but ISOL does do some benefits fulfillment. For example, they send out mandatory COBRA paperwork at the appropriate interval, and all of our employee records are managed through ISOL software. So it's not just cutting the payroll checks, it's also maintaining salary and position history.
Yeah.
It provides timekeeping capabilities.
I have a question about iSolve or whoever's handling it. Every year we have to re-up our employees' insurance. And they have to apply and put in what they're interested in having. I believe, Joanne, you mentioned earlier this year that you were looking at where instead of it being handled in-house, they would go and log on and enter their information, it would be processed that way. Does that come to fruition?
We don't know what plans we're going to implement this year, and we won't know for a bit because we have to go through the union negotiations first. If it's possible, it would certainly reduce the amount of time we spend on benefits enrollment internally. But again, there are so many unknowns in that equation, I can't guarantee that we'll be able to do it, or certainly.
Okay, I just know you mentioned it, it
Yeah,
seemed
it
like
would
a
be-
real improvement both for the employees and for staff.
Absolutely, and it's our goal. We'll see if the union negotiations conclude in a timely way, and that will allow us to do it.
Great.
What bank handles Sun Valley accounts, or is there more than one, or, because we got banking fees in here, I was wondering.
Yeah, so what you're looking at, those are primarily the, like credit card processing fees. Like, for example, when people come into the Welcome Center, and they charge things on the credit cards, like as rental slip, wet slips and dues and so on and so forth. That is the large portion of that.
Well, they can't charge dues, but they can charge anything else. If a resident wants to use a credit card to pay their dues, they have to go through an online interface that charges them the handling fee over and above the dues, and that's legally required, because the dues have to be the same for everyone, as stated in our restrictive covenants. But there are many other reasons that people pay us money. Golf, sometimes people come in and pay for golf stuff, so that's a bank fee. When they use a credit card, and it's a convenience fee that typically the seller pays. And so the more times people use their credit cards, the higher our bank fees go.
It seems more and more as I've been using different services, they go, well, use a credit card, you pay 2% more. They're making the customer pay the 2%. I'm seeing the same thing. Like everywhere I go, even in a restaurant.
That's true.
With bank fees though, let's say someone comes into the front office to pay their marina fee. Why is it not charged to either rec or to the marina, actually? Because that's who's collecting that money rather than us doing it. With golf, I understand it for years, that they have a really huge number because so many people use their credit cards. But it seems funny that admin would have such a high number when things like events, if people come in and pay for their vendor booth or whatever, that's all should go to events and stuff. Why would it be billed to administration? I just don't understand, that's a high number for admin.
Yeah, that basically just comes down to, quite frankly, administrative fees, because as you can imagine, and we'd have to on a monthly basis parse out how much of this we think is for like marina type renewals versus someone coming in and paying something for the rec center or so on and so forth. So it's literally just capturing it and.
Yeah, but isn't that all on any receipt that you get, whether it's your dues or assessments, or whether it's a marina fee or a rec fee for a event or whatever, for paying for an event, that sort of thing? Isn't that all kept track of separately or no?
Well, I mean, like, then, yeah, then once again, it would have to be tracked, like, on a receipt or on a transactional basis.
But it's just accounting, I mean, the money's coming in, if you wanna put, that $52 here or put it over there.
Right.
They just collect all their fees in one location, who get paid in the butt to go ahead and try to assign the fees to the different departments.
Yeah, it is if you're paying the amounts of money we're paying in some departments
Well, those
for transaction
example,
fees.
like golf, that's perfect department.
That's golf is a given,
Transacted, captured in golf.
That's not even a question, it's just with some of these other things, it's like where the money all gets put to. And if it's, all of a sudden our admin fees, like he says, you're looking at increasing that number every year, then is it enough that you can start to look at, then shouldn't it go to each department where it really should be considered revenue and expense to that revenue?
Yeah, I'd say for, like in 2025, there's 13,741, would it be worth spending the time spending that out? No.
So, questions? Yes, sir. I'm just gonna go back to your original PowerPoint slide. I just noticed that you don't list the reserve study as one of the tools you use in putting together your budget.
Well, actually, are there any more questions with operations?
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
that's
that'd
a
be
perfect segue.
Well, all right, I have operational questions. I was just pointing out this, but I have operational questions.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, actually, so to quickly answer your question, in terms of the reserve study, so when we get into the capital budget here, real shortly, like, the capital budget that you're looking at literally is the reserve study, will be the reserve study.
I understand.
So the reserve study will be pulled in line with
You
that.
ensure a consolidated picture of association finances, which one of the main tools is your reserve study.
Yeah.
It's just maybe it's just semantics from that point of view. I noticed that you're talking about how you save money by using the gutter comment. Have a person who can do it so much quicker than us relearning how to do this thing. But you've only increased $5,000 in building a contract vendor. So you went from $45,000 to $50,000 for all this work that you've outsourced. Did I hear also correctly that we're maintaining the pool?
We are doing portions of the work in partnership with CESCO. It is legally required that we have a certified pool operator, and that's CESCO.
All right.
And our maintenance department participates significantly in opening and closing the pool, and that has reduced the cost pretty significantly.
All right. So you've only gone up $5,000 for all this outsourced work. Is that really true?
Yes, that's really true, because the initial increases in that category happened over the years. And now we're just seeing price increases. We're not taking on additional vendors. For example, the street sweeper, the gutter contract, and they're incrementing up, but we're not adding new vendors to that list.
Well, you mentioned the street sweeper, and I didn't note it, but I was going to ask, have we done a cost value estimate for, hey, should we buy one at a certain point as opposed to lease out? Because we can drive it, we can do it all the time as opposed to 3 days a year. Have we looked at that, the cost of it?
Matt, do you want to help with that? My understanding is that those machines are extremely costly.
True, I don't have any numbers for you on that, but our mechanic Rocco comes from the city of Bellingham, we're using a technician there, mechanic. and working on street sweepers was continuous and costly. Without the numbers you just said, we don't want to.
We saw that this past year, just everybody remember in spring, when the street sweeper went through and people started finding all those little metal bits from the brush.
Those are kind of handy to use around the garage.
Anyway, apparently those brushes get replaced all the time and they're not cheap, so.
How's our fitness center going up 120%? Fitness budget change, 120% increase. Now, it's not a lot, it's from 1,000 to 2,200, but I was just kind of curious about that. So that's under rec community center, fitness center income, 120% increase. It's a small number, you know, it's
Yeah,
it's
well,
$1,100, but it's like, are we charging more?
here's what's happening, overall in recreation, and because a lot of the card fees have increased. It's because we have adopted this annual DOT system. So in the past, you got a card and you got different access privilege on your card and you went off you went. And for years, you would have those same access privileges. 2 years ago, in 2025, they started the practice of people still had their cards, but their privileges were deactivated until the first time they came in, and then we checked to make sure they had a waiver on file. And we're still residents, because another thing that we have found was that people were using our fitness center who lived here 3 years ago, right?
Continuing perk.
There you go. And so, along with that, we've also been very vigilant about people carding in or badging in and 3 people following them. And we've we've determined that there are quite a few people who come in with their buddies, you know, because it's after school and now they have to buy their own cards.
Thank you.
You're doing better due diligence.
Yeah. That's good, thank you.
So it's small dollars, but it makes people feel better. Because if you let people freeload, it doesn't feel good.
I agree with you. I agree, it was a good answer. It's like, hey, we're finding people who are not residents or haven't done the right thing, and they're gonna have to comply. Okay,
Tom?
Yeah, just to expand on what Ray had to say as far as bank fees. You know, most banks nowadays are charging the consumer that extra 3% to use a credit card. And I think we would be completely justified in doing the same thing.
Well, we can definitely look into it. The rates change too, depending on the different
Yeah, we
cards.
just need, yeah.
So that would be a little complicated, but I
I'm
can
just
certainly
thinking
look
an
at it.
average.
Yeah, makes sense.
There was an issue, Davis had an issue. I don't know whether you might find it in the files. He did have an issue.
Okay.
You might have a letter in your file.
Give it a
Do you
check.
have any other questions? Linda?
I have a question. We have 2 departments that have 1 employee each. And the one of the departments has this one person's salary at around 46,000. And yet the other department has this one person at like close to 80, right below 80,000, the projection for next year. And I wondered, what's the difference if it's only one staff person? If I need to say, I'll say.
The one's
The custodian and the other is compliance professional.
yeah, just totally different positions, with different pay rates as according to the CBA.
Well, I have to look that up, because I've got that, I'll check on that.
Yeah.
Because that seems really high, that just seems really high, that's all.
And the rates that they're getting is
Set in the CBA.
set in the CBA.
That makes sense.
All right, let's move on to capital.
Alrighty. Phase 2 here. The capital budget is a complex multi-year projection that models current fund reserves, obligated funds, planned income, anticipated project loan funding, and budgeted expenses. It's a doozy, in other words. The Capital Repair Replacement Reserve Fund, or SERV budget, covers the association's facilities and equipment. The Roads Reserve Fund covers roads, bridges, and culverts. Sun Valley's capital funds also include the mailbox reserve, but as no spending is planned to draw on that in 2027, the budget is not included. These next slides summarize the open capital projects. These are the projects that we track in terms of their spending to make sure that we start with the right amount in our capital budgeting. As you can see, these active projects in the current year have an obligated dollar total of $1,699,612. We've spent $728,577 of that. These are just the SERV projects, remaining just under $1 million to spend. Similarly for roads, projects that are still active, obligated funds amount to $2,211,330. We've spent just under $1 million for a remaining budget of $1.28 million. So, the SERV and roads budgets are complicated. I think one of the most challenging things about them is the 11 by 17 paper. But the approach that we're going to take here is to explain what we're doing in the spreadsheet and to give you verbally the major changes, and then Joel will go over the beginning totals, which are at the top of every column, and the residuals, which is what's left at the end of every year. And those are the key things to take away for this. Those are the action items, as it were. But the way the spreadsheet is set up is one column equals 1 year. And the expenses are listed on each row. And as Joel mentioned earlier, each one of the lines on the SERV and roads budget becomes an entry in our reserve study. And this spreadsheet and the reserve study is a mirror of it. This is how we plan recurring maintenance. This is how we plan replacement of assets. And all of that happens on a different schedule for a different kind of asset. You know, if you're driving a truck 100 miles every day in security, or 150, that truck is going to wear out faster than if you're driving a truck 50 miles as you collect the garbage or drive to a work site, do work, and then drive back to maintenance. So all of our individual assets, that's why we do that asset inventory, because they're evaluated each year to determine whether they're on the right maintenance schedule, the right replacement schedule. All right, so each of the rows is an asset or a part of an asset that needs to be maintained. So, diving into the major changes for the 2027 SERV budget. The biggest change is that we have added Barn 6 site preparation and construction. This year, the board approved funding for design and permitting for a replacement for the current Barn 6 structure. That project was estimated in terms of what it would take for site preparation and construction, and those totals were added into the budget. Barn 8 repairs and structural improvements were removed. They were removed from the immediate budget, and they were pushed out beyond the 10-year window that we look at in our budgeting. Okay, so they're still on the reserve study. They're still assets that we have to maintain, but we don't have a current plan to maintain them. We did retain 2 line items for Barn 8. One was to complete a needed immediate repair, which is the flat roof. And the other was to create a fund for other necessary repairs. So that while we are still in this holding pattern for Barn 8, where we don't have a developed detailed plan for how Barney will be addressed, we still need to keep it in service. So if we have a water heater go out or an HVAC unit needs a repair, we created this fund of $75,000 that's available and ready to go to keep Barney in good repair. Well, the community and the board work together to plan out the project with the appropriate amounts of input regarding repair, replacement, what needs to be here, what do you want to look like, all that stuff. In 2026, the SURF capital budget included a construction loan for $4 million. This year, the loan is moved out to be taken out between 2027 and into 2028, and it's been reduced in amount to $3 million. That was a significant improvement in the outlook for the SURF fund. Obviously, it's less money coming in, but importantly, it's also lower interest payments going out. And that has had a significant positive impact on the amount of residuals in the fund. We noted that golf cart repairs were eating up a lot of money, and we were annoying some of our loyal customers by providing golf carts that weren't in great shape. So we moved that replacement up from 2029 to 2027. So that's a real significant change. We timed the clubhouse renovations and kitchen equipment replacements to the end of 2028, beginning of 2029, to coincide with the restaurant's end of lease. So that the end of lease for our current restaurant tenant, El Agave, is anticipated in the early fall for 2028. And at that point, it's appropriate to negotiate space renovations as part of the lease or equipment replacements. And so we put the money in there so we can take care of it at that time. Lastly, timing of the marina basin repair was aligned with the dock replacement. Both of those were put into 2029, as those two projects will be completed under one permit. It's one thing. When those docks come out, the footings have to be addressed, we'll be removing the tires and armoring the bank as directed by the county and State Department.
Interior?
Yeah, the circular basin. So anyway, those are the major changes to SURF. And we will now go into the SURF
Questions on SURF, please? Just some numbers that don't make sense to me. You've got Barn 6 construction loan repayment in the second line, and it's $418,000. But yeah, when I add up all the costs for Barn 6 design, demo, site work, and construction, it's $3.645. Why don't those two numbers total?
What are you talking about?
Your second line down, $418,139. That's your Barn 6 construction loan repayment. But when I total up the lines for Barn 6 demo, design, and construction, it comes to 3.645. And certainly the numbers that you've got here are greater than 400, that you have going out are greater than 418,139. So that number doesn't look tight.
Actually, this number for the process fund total, 418,139.
418,139? Yeah.
This one I'll pull down to 331,812. But the good thing is it doesn't affect the spreadsheet. This is just the current cost for 2027.
You got loan repayment for a much higher amount.
Meaning that one I will reduce, that cost.
So then, two other items. On the 1, 2, 3, fourth line down for 264,081. If that includes contingency, okay, but we've got it in 26 at 253. So in the next line down, 524, you've got that listed at 504 in the 2026 line. So those numbers don't match.
So you're comparing the current cost column to the 2026 amount?
I'm looking at the 2026 line, and the cost estimate, total cost.
Yes, and so now the reason why those two are different is because let's look at the,
You got an escalation in
Yeah.
27.
so 2026, 504,000 for that demo and site work. Then this cost estimate year is 2027, so that goes up by 4%
4%.
to get it to the 2027.
To 524, 160.
Yes.
Okay.
How
That's
is it?
good. I'm good with that.
Hopefully it makes you feel better, but that 418 remain, that one I will change.
I hope so.
Down to the 331812, but the good thing is, that actually has no effect on any of these ratios.
No, the numbers,
Yeah.
the numbers are better over here, but that 418
Yeah.
is. Thank you. I'm good. I'll ask you my questions when I get to it.
All right, so the bottom line on SURF, literally, the bottom line, if we page down to the residuals. Yeah, I would love you to explain.
Okay. I'm just gonna quickly walk you through, and this also applies to the roads plan as well. So all we're gonna talk about right now is just these top numbers, how we start from the beginning numbers, and then get to the bottom numbers. So this is actually really good to go through. So you can see I'm looking at that Z3, the January 1 carryover, so column Z, line 3.
Which is on the first page of the SURF budget.
January 1 carryover, 1,893,875. So where that number comes from is that number comes from the projected December number from the April financial statements. The SURF ending number from the April financial statements, then it starts subtracting off. It assumes that all of these things that you see in 2026 will be obligated as of January 1, 2027. So that brings us to the starting amount of 1,893,875. So that number assumes that everything that you see in 2026 will be obligated, which means it drags down the available balance in January 1, 2027. And then you can see the second number, expected SURF reserve dues collection, $1,508,054. That corresponds to 6% dues increase, $2.40 increase per month per property owner. Then we have the anticipated bar 6 loan proceeds, $3 million coming in one shot. Estimated interest and other income is just $6,000 for interest for that. Now this is the important one, previous year's carryover holdback. Remember on that reserve schedule, how at the bottom we subtract that $600,000 that the board would not like to fall below. So here I put it back in here. So that 600,000 is not a part of that very first number, so it's being put back. So that just means total expected reserve revenue at the end of 2020, for 2027, $7,007,930. Then basically, all these lines below it, if everything planned for 2027 starts subtracting, you add up, you go to the last page here, the sheet, you can see we have grand total expenditures of $5,076,525, that's everything in between added up. And then you can see the bottom table down below here, reserve plan expenditures, $5,076,525. Year-end reserve balance after expenses, that's that beginning $7 million number minus all these planned expenditures, $1,931,405. And now we're just kind of with the reserve cash table, we take out that $600,000 again, which means we have an expected residual $1,331,405. And that $1,331,405 becomes the starting number for 2028, and then it just repeats again.
So that's how you read this pie chart. And I wish I could make this bigger, but if you look at the residuals for every year, at the end of 2027, as Bill just said, it's $1,331,405. At the end of 2028, it's $1,636,635. Then, in 2029, after the replacement of the marina docks and the clean out of the marina basin, we have a residual of $25,776. That's tight here.
The specialist.
Okay, but remember, that's after we've taken out the 600,000 reserve surf reserve funds, right?
So you actually have 625.
Yeah, right, you actually have a little bit more than that 600,000. And at the end of 2030, we grow back to a more comfortable 229,119. In 2031, it's 646,976. 2032, 1,000,005. 2033, 1,000,006. 2034, 1,000,008. 2035, 2.5, and in 2036, 2.8. And remember, these numbers are projected using no dues increases after 2027,
Right,
right?
and no special assessment.
And no special assessments. This is just the same dues that we are projecting for 2027 carried out through the 10-year period, and we can pay for everything. So it's tight after replacement of the marina docks, that's for sure. But it's not below zero, and it doesn't require us to take out an additional loan. Now, we haven't accounted for Barn 8 in all of this, except for the regular maintenance to keep it in service and replace the flat roof, right? But if the community and the board decide that they want to renovate Barn 8 or replace portions of it or do other work with Barn 8, that would add funds to this schedule, and additional means of funding would need to be added. As a sort of a what-if scenario, we also ran this spreadsheet showing a nominal 3% dues increase annually. And it significantly improved the residuals, especially in the out years, making it feasible at a nominal 3% increase per year to fund renovations of Barn 8 over that 10-year period. Not all in one shot, and you have to wait a couple of years after, to recover from the 2029 expenditures, significant expenditures on the docks and the marina. But after that, as our reserves start to refill, there would be the opportunity without a loan or special assessment to begin repairs or replacements of this structure, addressing this structure in some way. Does that make sense?
Tom, are we, ready for questions?
Ready for questions on SURF? We still have roads.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how practical it is to think of a 0% increase or even a 3%, because we know there's gonna be inflation, we know there's gonna be salary increases, and I don't think 3% would even cover that.
Well, we don't know what the future is gonna hold by creating budgets that extend out 10 years and show no increases. We're taking a very conservative outlook.
Yeah.
Very conservative. Doesn't mean that you have to do it that way, but for right now, I think that would inspire confidence on the part of the community that there is a plan in place to take care of our assets that would not require a dues increase or special assessment.
No, I agree, that's a great idea, I just don't want to put false hope out there.
Good point, great.
Joanne, the amount for the marina placement, the dollar amount that you have in that budget, is it 5 million?
No.
No.
For the docks,
Yeah,
1.8,
1.8.
yeah,
Plus the 350,000 for the,
basin.
I'm sorry, the 250,000 for the basin.
So the basin is the basin,
The tires and all that,
the shoreline,
yeah.
okay.
And we haven't determined if dredging is necessary. We don't know, and we don't know what studies are gonna be required going into it to get the
So
shoreline.
there's still some unknowns, there's those numbers that we were provided a couple of years ago.
Incremented for inflation. And there's a plan in operation to, at the end of this year, bring out, and this is all paid for in operations, right? In our on-call engineering, to bring out an engineering firm to take a look at the docks, because we have not seen additional degradation.
That's where I was going, I think reevaluate,
Yeah.
Yeah,
because it might just,
it could go out of here. It could go out 2 years, we don't know, but we're gonna bring the engineers back to tell
I
us.
worked on docks for 25 years. I took an inspection on that myself, and it can be restored for a whole lot less money and still be functional, in my opinion.
Correct, yeah.
You know, I'm on Navy docks and I'm on Washington State Ferry docks,
Sorry.
all over the world. And the docks are not in bad shape. But
Yeah.
I think we cut it 1.7 down to about 300.
If you remember, we had T-docks. And the T-docks were removed way before I came here. And I'm curious if anyone has considered, or Joanne, if you're aware, that we had T-docks that extended from the spit out into the water at one time.
Yes, I was with that.
So have we considered the concept of putting those T-docks back?
No, and I'll tell you why, because we're on a razor's edge right now with just this stuff.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Linda?
So what does 2027 and 2028 look like? Because you've got the $3 million loan in there. If you do, because you sat at this meeting and said, maybe in 27, maybe in 28. So how does that make the carryover and stuff look depending upon when you take the loan out? Because everything looks fine.
Well, right now, the full loan amount is anticipated to be brought in next year, but it's a construction loan, so it's tied to construction. So if for some reason there's a delay in breaking ground or getting the permits, that might affect the timing of that loan. But we currently anticipate to complete construction in 2027. It's a relatively straightforward project. And the full loan amount is shown in 2027, and the schedule of repayments is based on that. However, reality rears its ugly head, and that schedule may shift if there is a delay in the construction. Because I just wanted to emphasize that it's a construction loan. And that means you don't just get the money, you pay it out to pay for the construction. Yes.
Well, I've got that, it's just, it changes the numbers. If you take 3 million out of everything for 2027 and put it somewhere, I'm just saying, it makes a difference, and
I guess, Linda, I guess we could think about it like this, so some of these construction costs spilled over into 2028, then part of that loan draw would just spill over into 2028 along with it, but they would balance out.
That's the point.
I'm just looking at the residuals, and when we get down into $25,776 left over in 2029,
But it's
that's
a
all.
zero-sum game,
Yeah.
because it's a draw.
Oh,
Just looking at some of these numbers, they're just really low, guys.
They're really scary. I mean, again, that's why it is a very conservative spreadsheet. And to know that, we can do a 3% across the board of going forward, which is probably less than, it should probably be like 4 or 5%, but at least 3% gives us a cushion as we move forward if we want to do that, if that looks like that's where we want to go.
It'd be nice to build instead of just maintain.
I hear you.
I don't even know if Joel knows yet what percentage we're funded. All I know is the numbers from last year for where are we with our reserve funding, and I don't know if you've gotten all that information from them yet or not.
No, matter of fact, the next step will be like these changes will then get plugged into the new reserve study model. But it won't be-
I don't see us moving forward. I don't, we chose to put no increase in SURF last year.
No, we did, actually, because of you, we did.
Well,
No.
50,000. 50, it was a minimal amount, it's 50,000, yeah.
But,
Then that can't be, because in your ops budget, you have the 250,000.
no, actually, last year it was 300,000.
It was 300 last year.
Was it
Yeah,
300?
it was originally 300,000, it was
Okay.
actually at your insistence, then we dropped it down to 250, and I put that into SURF.
Yeah.
It's just, my whole point is 50,000 is nothing. We need to be able to have contribution from the members in the association. You know, if you took 50,000 and divided it by 3,117, I don't think you'd have.
But the good thing, at least in 2027, it's 6%.
I'm really pleased with that.
Yeah.
You know, I think roads is fine. I think the only thing that could hurt us in roads as far as funding and money is these couple of bridges that we've put off that are gonna do nothing but increase in pricing, and they're right now over the top.
Regulatory advice.
Yeah.
So I want to clarify, you said 6% increase to SURF, that's not correct though. 6% is going to ops.
No, 6%. The CERT dues go up from 2026 to 2027, 6%.
The dues proposal,
The dues proposal.
we'll delineate that. You can see, we took the increase that would normally have gone to roads and mailboxes if we increased 6% across the board. We took that and added it into ops in order to make ops balance out. But SURF retains the 6% increase in the contribution. Roads and mailboxes are gonna be the same contribution as in 2026.
Okay.
That's how that works out. Awesome. Any other questions on SURF?
The bridges that we have that are sitting over there, we haven't installed, we have the funds for that already.
We all,
We already
award the
paid for
contract.
the bridges themselves.
Yeah.
We have the bridges and we okayed the project for Area Z Bridge that we've taken from the other bridge,
So the
so.
Culvert 4 Bridge,
Yeah.
the design and permitting was completed, and now the construction had to move to next year because it would extend beyond the watershed window and require dirt earthwork.
And I think we've paid for the bridge, I think,
But we took
itself.
money from that Culvert 4 to help with Area Z.
Well, Area Z Bridge and Culvert 4 Bridge were a single project initiated way back when and held up by the county's process, right?
Yeah.
And so we won't know if there's a shortfall
Okay.
for that bridge until next year when we get to it. So in a way, we'll cross that bridge when we
You love money.
I give
Water under the bridge, man, water under the bridge.
Let's do roads.
All right, so we have this beautiful picture to look at.
Yes, beautiful.
Sun Valley in all its glory. And the roads and drainage plan leads directly into the roads budget. And that is actually solidified in policy of the association. There's a policy that says you need to have an external engineer come and look at your roads every 5 years, and based on what they tell you, you need to fund it, because roads are important, and that's an excellent policy. So, following that policy, in February of 2023, the board awarded a contract to Impact Design for the development of a 10-year maintenance plan for SVCA's roads, culverts, and bridges. This comprehensive plan was presented to the board in January of 2024. The plan includes a prioritized list of projects by year, along with estimates of the cost of each project, which the 2027 roads capital budget applies an increase to at an inflation rate of 4% per year. So even though the estimates are from 2023, we increment them by 4%, and so far we haven't been terribly far off. So that's been encouraging. The 2027 roads capital budget aligns exactly with the recommendations made by Impact Design in a 10-year plan, with a few key exceptions. We do not blindly, 3 years after they did the inspections, we do not blindly go out and repair things. Instead, Impact Design, along with maintenance and PNW, our capital project manager, Tyler Andrews, they go out and they look at all this stuff. And they determine whether, is this truly the worst road, and should this overlay happen this year? Should these asphalt repairs be made? Has this culvert degraded? Does it need to be replaced, or do we need to make a shift? And that is completed every year. Now, this is a 10-year roads and drainage plan, but the policy calls for it to be repeated every 5 years. And the reason for that is because reality is never exactly what you think it's gonna be, right? Projections are guesses, and they're educated guesses, but they can still be wrong. So every 5 years, we redo the work, we inspect, all that good stuff, and the engineers come back with a refreshed plan, and at that time, we'll do a major refresh on the roads budget. Okay? We added two projects to the roads budget that were not in the 10-year roads plan. One of them is planned for next year, and it's $130,000 allocated towards repainting fog lines on primary and secondary roads. This has been a request of the membership for multiple years. It is expensive to do, mostly because we have to sweep those streets and clear all the dirt off before we can paint the fog lines.
If only you had your own streets.
If only we had, or a lot of people with brooms.
I'll go do my front, I'll go do the front of my property.
Anyhow, I wanted to call that out because so many people have asked for that, and we finally have reacted and been able to react, and we put that money in the budget. The other thing is that we found out that in rebuilding Barn 6 here, we would be required to make pretty significant drainage upgrades down here, and every one of us who parks over there sees that the drainage is, could be improved. And the county is requiring drainage improvements to the rec corridor in order to give us the permit to replace Barn 6. And that's about, how much do we put in your drawing? 500,000 is about.
What page?
Yeah,
Actually, you'll see that it's the last line on the first page.
Recreation corridor, yeah, it's line 67.
Okay, and the rest of this is simply, you saw it last year, now it's 1 year further into it, but it's the same projects, the same amounts, and Joel, do you want to talk about the residual?
Well, you can see, obviously, I already explained for SERP at the beginning that the numbers, the exact same thing applies to this. You can see the residuals, on the very last page. At the end of 2027, 1.4 million, 2028, 1.07 million, 2029, 867,000, so on and so forth. And you can, the lowest year is 2032, well, actually 2033, where it's real close to 309,000, then it builds up again to where at the end of 2036, it's 2.1 million.
So we are in good shape on roads, and by continuing to invest at these same levels, we'll keep the roads in good shape. By maintaining the roads, ultimately you save money because the base doesn't degrade. It's much cheaper to replace asphalt than it is to rip up and replace the foundation of those roads. So we want to make sure we keep on it. I don't know if any of you remember here, but back in 2023, we paid about $15,000 for a little dump truck or dump trailer for maintenance. And the stated purpose for that trailer, Matt's smiling, was to go and pick up cold patch so we could fill potholes. And I don't think this association has ever made a more popular or useful investment. Because when maintenance goes around and patches those holes, it's a temporary fix for sure, but man, it beats bottoming out your car in a hole. And of course, it preserves the surrounding asphalt. And so I can't emphasize enough how important it is to spend money to save money. And we see that in maintenance. We see that in turf because we've invested in better equipment, right, to reduce the rate of repairs and the cost of repairs. We see that in golf by bringing those carts in. So there have been smart decisions made by the association that are paying dividends. The survey that we just completed, the approval rating for roads or the satisfaction with roads has increased since 2020. That's great. That's a great result. We have a ways to go. We need to continue to work at it, but we're in much better shape on roads. So I'm very excited that we end on a high note. Are there any questions about roads?
Yeah, I have one.
We'll go with, all right.
Can I go first this time? Because I only have one.
Yeah, you can, go
I
ahead.
think in 2016, Linda, I'm gonna need your help on this. In 2016 or 17, the association voted to increase the roads budget by, I think, 110 or 124,000 to do vegetation control, which was a 10-year project.
Yes.
And AJ stopped doing it, and I remember chastising him verbally at a meeting saying, why are you not doing this? And it's dropped off from that. We had crew, maintenance organizations already in summer help, and they went through the roads section by section and cut the overhead trees and cleaned out the swales and culverts so that it supported the roads by not washing them away. And it's dropped off now. And the members did vote that money into our roads plan, and it's not being done.
Actually, that's the very last line on the
Let's take a look.
I was gonna say, I was gonna say it's been in there every year because there's kind of a base amount and then there's the amount that it's increased by Joel.
Go to the very last page.
Well, I see recreation corridor agreement.
Third page,
Ditch and culverts as well.
This is for 2016 SGM
Yes.
What's the number?
For 27?
So it's row 249.
249.
So are we spending the money?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I want to thank you. I didn't think we were. Excellent. Thank you.
Sometimes, Mitch, you need to know even when they don't spend it all, it's carried over.
Oh, I just.
So that,
Yeah.
Or was it Ray? I knew. Let's go Ray and then we'll.
I just wanted to thank Joel and Joanne, hard work on this. I mean, I can actually understand this. This is pretty good. Because thank you for the walkthrough and look, I was on it all the way. Thank you.
I noticed that in 2027, there's no money for road signs, and there's been a request for emergency exit signage in the upper gates on the main roads. Exit to Lake Louise Drive, or exit to Lake Wackenham Boulevard in case of an emergency, or new people that live here, or visitors, can't find their way out.
Yeah, sounds up against a car too.
So, I'm just wondering if we,
In 2025, it was approved for street signs and pavement work and repairs, close to 24,000.
but it hasn't happened.
Well, yeah, we did, we spent it all. Every year, street signs are replaced.
Big improvement.
You want additional signs?
Yeah, this is additional signs.
Yeah, well, we can definitely
Just
look
off
to
the
add
main
that.
road.
Right, but this is the first that I'm hearing of it, I'm sorry, and we would need to plan out exactly what to do.
And that would be a difficult plan.
Sure, but I mean,
It is being asked for.
Big improvement. Big improvement.
We'll
FYI,
go with Linda.
when I first moved here, and I don't think it applies now, if your street was a through street, it had a white sign. If it wasn't a through street, it had a red sign, which meant you're gonna get nowhere fast on this road. We've changed the way roads are. I used to be 33 Wisteria Lane, now I'm 5, and that's thanks to the postal service. But the street signs, if they were white, it meant that if you stay on the street somehow, you may go forever, but you can get out. But if they were red, you knew that they were cul-de-sacs at the very end of them, like Loganberry Lane ends up at Sonia's house, and it's a dead end. It would be a red sign.
Well, was that a correct statement?
I'm trying to give a street up by me, the Flower Court, which is by me. Wisteria itself, Wisteria Lane right now, the way it is red, and so, but I'm saying, that way people knew, but I think since then, we've just put in white signs.
the different colored signs were very mysterious to me when I joined, and after going through multiple filing cabinets that were extremely dusty, I actually found a memo that said, if you're in gate 9, you have blue signs, and if you're in gate 28, you have red signs. And so I think over the years, there's been many different interpretations of it. But right now, the white signs show up the best, they're the easiest to read, that's what we've been doing.
Oh, I agree, and when they wash them, they're beautiful, they wash them quite frequently. The deer come out and watch them
Yeah,
in
so-
my yard, so.
Yeah, so we've done 2 hours.
Yep.
And a couple of minutes, of really intense looking at numbers. I think you can see that while we have, unfortunately, to accommodate significant increases in, categories that are, for the most part, outside of our control, utilities, insurance, medical insurance, fuel costs, that we're trying our darndest to keep costs in line, to, keep dues increases as low as possible. And I think that we have no special assessments. As many times as I can say those two things, I think that's the message we want to get out. And it's important because our members have told us that that's important to them. So it is very important to us, and I really appreciate your attention to this. I'm sure there'll be more questions, but I would encourage people to come out again to that August 15th meeting to give us their feedback, their take on all of this, and to allow us the opportunity to answer their questions. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you.
Are we having a meeting tomorrow, folks?
No,
it's not
we covered everything tonight.
Okay.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying it's on the schedule, folks.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:06.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much, and thank management as well, appreciate you guys.
For me,